You ready? Okay. Well, I don't have to say that to you. Okay, recording. Okay, much better. All right, well, thank you so much for coming this evening. At this time, I'd really like you to, please, turn the ringers off your cell phone and any other electronic devices that you don't use anymore. You'll have an important call, so take it in the other room, and then that'll be fine. You got that? Okay. Could we, say the names of the people in the room, please? My name is Caroline Gilbert. Hi, Pamela. Nice to have you here this evening. I'm Danny Patterson. Hi, Tammy. Nice to have you. And then we have, say your name, the first name.
Hello, Garrett.
Know your name, please.
Dan Phillips.
Hi, Dan. Nice to have you here tonight. Well, we get started. Right. We're going to do the healthy home. What hospital is your home? So we're going to ask you some questions. The scoring is below. So the first question is, do you use non-stick tape? If you always use them, give yourself 10 points. If you sometimes use them, give yourself 5 points. Or if you never use them, 0. So anything in between. Okay? Our second question is, how do you like your veggies? Select one. Raw, you're going to take 0 points. Cooked but crunchy, 1 point. Cooked until soft, 4 points. Puree, 7 points. And deep fried, 10 points. So score yourself on which you want. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 1. Yeah, this is one. This one. So it's one. Okay? Question number 3, select the 3 methods you most often use to prepare your evening meal. So grilled or charcoal is 5 points, deep fried, 8 points. Boiled, 5 points, baked, 2 points. Saute or fried, 1 point. Slow cooked, 2 points. Microwave, 1 point. Steamed, 0 points. Cut raw, sausage, 0 points. 4 for pressure, and that's 8 points. So score yourself on that. Question number 3. Number 4, if you eat steak, how do you typically order or prepare it? If you don't eat steak, then 0. Other words, raw, 0, up to well done is 5 points. So you can leave where you're at on that scale and write it on the down sheet. Okay, moving on to number 5, the last question. What role does plastic play in your kitchen? And this question, you want to select all that apply. We have plastic or foam containers for the heating food in the microwave. That one's 8 points. Plastic wrap for covering food that's being heated in the microwave, 8 points. Plastic wrap for covering stored food with 4 points. Plastic or foam containers for storing food leftovers, 4 points. Plastic or foam cups, plates, bowls, etc. That would be 5 points for each of those. This is where you want to come up. You can use cups, 5 points plates, 5 points bowls, 5 points. This is a little more complicated.
What about if you have the party, but I no longer use it overnight?
We're not doing it anymore. That's not. That doesn't count. Yes, I know we talked about this already.
Plastic was meaning was
The ones that the stores give you that will never be foam. You know, that styrofoam foam, Okay, you ready? Go ahead and have your score.
I feel better than I did.
I'm going to speculate, are you ready?
Already.
Oh, you're good, okay, okay. But if you fall between 1 and 15, 20, you're a monster six. If you fall between 16 and 30, you're a line hook. If you fall between 31 and 45, you're a six hook. And 46 and above, you're a distance. So, wherever you are, you need to, improve the score to the master six. To do help with your line hook. What's that line hook, Kendra? I'm assuming you're a master class. Renee, yes, yes. So then, Susie and Martha, will take a little more practice here, so there's a little more practice. Right, you learn it, so that's a good thing. And that's right. That's why we do it. Be a little baby. You can improve it over time. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's wonderful.
Those classes.
Okay. I thought you were waiting. Okay, well, you can finish this slide. How we prepare to our food is another significant factor in our nutrition intake and overall health. So, the food is a glass container on the one side and ceramic on the other side. The glass container is the one that we want to use to store vegetables, anything we want to store that in the fridge, we want to use that. No more plastic, and the reason why we don't use plastic is because the plastic is used into the food and the food is untoxic. So glass is the same.
I'm more than I'm not microwaving it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm not worried it's not in.
Right.
Yeah, but I do have, I have a bunch of that stuff. I glass stuff that, already.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of powder and I didn't use enough and I was like, it's not the candy, I got something into that. So now I'm doing it.
Now, one thing is too, you notice that has a plastic lid, you wouldn't keep it that way.
No.
It's okay to have the ones, there's a lot of the glass too, you can buy them in glass lids, they aren't very practical. But usually the storage, you never ever keep it that lid, it takes the lid off. But if you really need a lid, what I do is I take my Cornware Pyrex dishes, that square lid, almost all of the round containers, you can set that lid right on there, and it keeps it from sliding or whatever, you've got glass on glass and it's aerated, what's the purpose? But don't ever try to use it.
What about the paper towel? I will do a paper towel a lot. I didn't use it. I'll write paper towel.
Yeah, I don't think anything wrong with paper. I think it's kind of that's not something that's doing. It is something that's disposable and you have to use it, right? It's like glass, I just like it off the use it for cost, enough. My good. Taking no cost.
But you know what I usually use? And I try to get them, you know, the dollars that you put all over the microwave.
Oh, I've never used those.
They're plastic.
Oh, okay, I don't have those. The only dome
But
I
they
have
don't
is glass or
have
silver
food.
ones, but it's just,
No, they don't have the food, but it's like dome air. Going through it. You know what I mean?
if you're eating, and there's plastic in the microwave, I don't know where it is. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. Yeah, some kind of glass with it, that's fine. Okay, any questions? Welcome, Jerry. Hello. I told you I'd do cell phone for help. Okay, cool. Okay. What we've just done is gone through the rural health plan too, and then we are, going to move on to, this next slide is just to tell you about our next class. It's going to be on Wednesday, July 17th at 6:30 here, and it's going to be on our Bronte pilot. Remember that experience is largest organ, and we're going to talk about how to take care of it in the beautiful time farm. That's Wednesday, July 17th. Okay. Now at this time,
I'm on.
Hey, Karen.
Hey, how are you?
Well, we're looking at your bio slide right at the moment. So I know you guys have been watching this slide. This is Karen Armstrong. She's a certified holistic nutritionist, a certified herbal molecular holistic practitioner, a somatic intuitive trainer, and a lifestyle
Microscopist.
Macroscopist?
Microscopist. Woohoo!
Karen's enthusiasm and passion to educate others on how to break free from the painful illness came from her very own journey of reversing the incurable inflammatory bowel disease, known as Crohn's disease. Living disease-free earned Karen recognition in numerous countries as the go-to expert who can unlock the secrets to better health. So at this time, as you can hear, Karen is there. We're ready to go.
Perfect. So I am going to share my desktop, I believe.
Just 1 moment when I stop mine. Okay. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Okay, so can you see my screen? Let me just see. Can you see that?
No.
Did you say yes?
I did.
Okay, perfect. So then I'll bring this up. Can you check to make sure everybody else can see it as well?
Yes, we can see it. Hold on, I just want to.
Oh, I see. You know what it is? It's just delayed. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, because I have it up on my iPad as well, so it's just delayed. Well, thank you, Renee and Susie. Thank you so much for allowing me to present to your group tonight, and hello to everybody. And the screen that you see here is just a disclaimer. It's something that I legally have to do. Just basically what it says is that the contents of this presentation are of my opinion, and it's just for information and entertainment. If you're taking medications, please don't stop taking your medications. And if you have any illnesses or symptoms or anything life-threatening, please get in touch with your physician or your healthcare practitioner. So with that said, we can get started. Tonight we are talking about leaky gut. Some of the names or medical terminologies for this is hyperpermeable intestines or intestinal permeability. It's basically a fancy medical term that means the intestinal lining has become more porous with more holes developing that are larger in size, and the screening out process is no longer functioning properly. And this concept of leaky gut actually it is not being taught in the medical school, and believe it or not, our gut is the biggest immune system organ in our body. So before we get into what is leaky gut and how leaky gut occurs, first you need to understand how digestion works. Now I'm not going to go into great detail, as some of you have actually seen this in a different presentation, but I just want to give you the gist. So basically digestion begins in the brain We see food, we smell food, and it sends a message to our brain, which then sends a message to our mouth to create saliva full of enzymes to break our food down. And then the brain also sends a message to our stomach to increase its production of hydrochloric acid. And then we bring the food into our mouth and we chew about 25 to 50 times to allow for that food to break down. And then we swallow and it travels down the esophagus into our stomach. And then once in our stomach, our food is then broken apart and we begin to release nutrients from our food. And at this point, everything is a liquid, mushy mass in our stomach. The food then leaves the stomach via the pyloric sphincter, or the pyloric canal, I should say, and then into the pyloric sphincter, which then triggers the 3 parts of the small intestines to prepare for incoming food. So we have the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum, and they're all going to absorb the food. And toxins from the food that toxins can come from our food that we eat, as well as what we breathe and what we put on our skin, are also all absorbed into the bloodstream along with our nutrients. Now, all nutrients and toxins are sent to the liver via the bloodstream, and the liver then sends the nutrients where they're needed in the body and turns the toxins from a harmful substance into a less harmful mixture so that we can then exert it from our body via our kidneys and our colon. Now, the jejunum and the ileum are all about absorption, and this is where we absorb everything. Now, how does the body get these nutrients from the intestinal tract to the bloodstream? Well, it's with the help of microvilli in the jejunum and the ileum, and they contain villi and microvilli. Now, what you see here are the lacteal, which are the pink strands on top, and the capillary is the arrow in blue, and the pink rectangle, if you will, that's also the lacteal. And the microvilli are on top of the little pink strands in black, and they are microscopic. In fact, if you were to look at them through a high-powered microscope, they would look like bristles of a hairbrush swaying back and forth, just catching the nutrients as they come down. And if any of the nutrients need to be broken down, they are then further broken down by the enzymes in the microvilli. Now, here is a close-up of 3 of the microvilli, and after all the breakdown of the food, all that's left for the most part are the nutrients, and everything is broken down really, really nicely, and all these little molecules are able to flow into the microvilli and right into the bloodstream, and then they go up to the liver where they are then distributed through the body. Now, once the nutrients are all broken down, the undigested parts of the food, such as the cellulose, along with cellular debris, and all of this will then pass from the small intestines into the large intestine. And if you still have your appendix, there will be an abundance of good bacteria that will then munch on this undigested fiber and will start to produce some vitamins, as well as allow for the undigested material to be broken down further. And then the colon is merely the waste collection and expeller tank, if you will. It's meant for short-term storage, and if you have the ascending colon, it will monitor whether or not you need water for the transverse colon, so that when this mushy mass comes through and goes into the transverse colon, it will then take on that water and start to plump everything up. Then once it rounds the last part of the colon, which is the descending colon, that mass will start to become more bulky and hard, and then it will exit the body via the anus. So the entire digestive tract, oh here, wait, cecum, there you go, your cecum, ascending colon, your transverse, and your descending colon, and your sigmoid. I have to keep remembering to hit my, my enter button. And rectum and anus. How could I forget all those parts? Oh, and there's your appendix as well. So this, the entire digestive tract from the mouth to the anus is literally one big tube. And this one big tube, for the most part, is enclosed, and it's not open to the rest of the body. The microvilli and the tight junctions between them keep everything else out of the bloodstream except for what is meant to go to the liver, which is your nutrients and your toxins that are then quickly broken down so that they don't cause us any harm. However, with the way our lifestyles are today, we have evolved and we are experiencing a complete breakdown of our digestive system. So because we're not chewing our food and we're not having adequate hydrochloric acid, our food is not being broken down the way it's supposed to be broken down. So when it makes its way to the small intestines and comes upon those teeny tiny little microvilli, it's too big, and so it has to try and force its way through by creating pressure. And this pressure eventually leads to cracks and fissures of those tight junctions that we were talking about, and it erodes away the microvilli. Now, everything can come into the bloodstream. So this, of course, is going to send out a distress signal, and the liver is going to send out that private investigator to come out and figure out what the heck is going on in the blood. And so this private investigator comes out and he reports back, I have no idea what is in this blood, but all I can tell you is that, you know what, you need to send out the army because I think we need to attack these foreign bodies. So what happens is the army comes out, and those are your white blood cells, and they come out and they attack and they destroy those foreign bodies. But in the process, they create all of this fire. They create tons of heat. And when we have heat, we have fire. And when we have fire, we end up with inflammation. And inflammation causes the spaces between the cells of the gut to become more permeable. And it also causes lots of damage. So histamine is released if the tissues become damaged or inflamed. And the histamine comes from the mast cells in the damaged tissues and from the basophils in our blood. So over time, chronic histamine response leads to fluid leakage and plasma protein into the tissues, and then leak out fluid into the circulation of the tissues, which leads to edema. So we have these edema-producing effects of histamine, which translates to us as bloating and swelling. Ever eaten something and your hands swell up, or maybe your feet swell up? That's a histamine response going on. So of course you have this inflammation, you have histamine, you've got this all-out war, and so what happens is your liver becomes overwhelmed with everything coming into the bloodstream, and it can no longer detoxify the toxins coming in, and it sends out it sends out the nutrients, but the nutrients aren't able to get where they're needed in the body, and so you have nutrients that aren't being sent to where they're needed in the body. We have toxins that are now being sent out into the blood and being stored in tissues, and that causes a complete breakdown of the detoxification system. So inflammation causes the spaces between the cells of the gut wall to become larger than usual, and as the intestinal wall becomes more permeable or has more holes in it, more and more opportunistic pathogenic funguses, bacteria, and viruses, along with undigested proteins and toxins, can easily make their way into the bloodstream. So basically, the intestinal wall becomes leaky, allowing undigested food particles or undigested protein molecules and everything else to enter into the bloodstream. And the immune system starts making antibodies against undigested molecules or proteins because it recognizes them as foreign invading substances. And so the immune system becomes hyperstimulated and overreactive to substances that are not necessarily supposed to be dangerous. Thus, it wears down the immune system, leaving you defenseless. So at this point, pathogenic bacteria can now enter into the bloodstream. And some of those bacteria that we're going to have, we have different types of bacterial, we have fungal, we have viral, we also have protozoals like C. difficile, Campylobacteria, Salmonella, Shigellosis, Yersinia enterocolitica, E. coli, And these sound like really foreign words, right? But they're all types of bacteria, all of which can lead to greater problems, not just digestive issues, but can affect other organs, including skin, brain, and joints. And it can increase inflammation and intestinal permeability, leading to further tissue damage. So we have an all-out war going on. So we have an inflammatory response, we have a histamine response, and there's an all-out immune battle, and this leads to an autoimmune response. Proteins and antigens, along with bacteria and parasites, candida, fungi, have free access via the blood. It's like the lazy river of the blood. They can go wherever they want to go. There's nothing to stop them. So proteins and bacteria and the like can get into those tissues and trigger that inflammatory reaction in the surrounding tissue because it's not supposed to be there. The one thing we need to understand about inflammation is inflammation actually works for us. Inflammation heats things up so that we can try and kill the foreign antibodies or the bacteria that's come and invaded that surrounding tissue. So inflammation is a process of trying to remove what should not be there. So this is a signal for you to start tuning in. If you are dealing with any type of an inflammatory process, that's your body saying, hey, I've got something in this surrounding tissue and I need you to get it out. So at this point, you have an inflammatory response, a histamine response, an autoimmune response, and this is when everything can go downhill. I love this picture. She didn't actually fall down the stairs. This is an Italian artist who sets up predicaments, and that's what you're seeing here. So basically, antibodies are created, the army guys that we just talked about, to attack and destroy the proteins and the fungus and the bacteria and whatever else is in the blood that's not supposed to be there. So if this attack is happening in the lining of the intestinal tract, it can lead to things like inflammatory bowel disease or even IBS. We're now learning that IBS is actually an infection. So if the migration is to the joints, it can lead to symptoms of arthritis, osteoarthritis. So proteins embedded in tissues can cause an inflammatory trigger, and damaged tissues lead to histamine response. And once this becomes chronic, the immune system attacks all cells because at this point, they can't tell the difference between friend and foe. And so this leads to those allergies and food sensitivities. This is when you start to have problems with smelling gasoline or smelling perfume or any other offensive odors. It just sets you off, or you're sneezing all the time, or you have that postnasal drip, or your eyes are watery, or you're dealing with headaches and even aches and pains in joints at this time. These are vague symptoms. And these types of vague symptoms, although it's a food intolerance or a food sensitivity, we haven't tuned in yet. So we end up with this array of symptoms that are related not only to the food intolerance but the underlying leaky gut. So you take a look here, you see mood swings, depression, dark circles under the eyes, edema, insomnia, and skin problems. We haven't even made the connection that the skin problems that we're dealing with today goes back to a food intolerance, but literally goes back to that leaky gut. Rosacea, dry flaky skin, red blotches, hives, eczema. I love eczema. 9 times out of 10, people diagnose their own saying, oh yeah, I have eczema. It's not eczema. It probably is a fungus well known as Candida. Psoriasis is also a part of this. Then we look at the digestive parts, the indigestion, heartburn, reflux disease, burping, what's the other one? GERD. GERD is the other one. Those are all food intolerances that go back to leaky gut syndrome and the lack of hydrochloric acid. Look at the gas, the bloating, constipation, diarrhea, the noisy bowels. If you're hearing that gurgling or whining or your bowels are just talking back to you, that's symptoms telling me, look, you're eating something that is not agreeing with me right now, but if you would just fix the underlying problem, I would allow you to eat this food once in a while. So we really have to pay attention, but Unfortunately, these vague symptoms, they just send us to the pharmacy for an over-the-counter remedy, or if you actually go to the doctors, they'll probably give you an antibiotic because they have no idea what's going on, and for whatever reason, they just think that an antibiotic fixes everything. Or they might even just give you a sample of, a new sample that's come in from the pharmaceutical rep that they left behind to, just try it out with the incoming patient if you don't know what to do with them. But if we don't pay attention and we allow these symptoms to persist, this is when you may begin to have those abnormal tests. So you go to the doctors because you've got some of these weird symptoms going on. You're not really sure what's going on. And so he or she runs a whole bunch of urine and blood tests, and you come back with some abnormal tests. They could be in the low normal or just a little bit past normal. And again, you could be given an antibiotic or some kind of drug that might be able to help with it. And you might even get some minor diagnoses that may require some medications. So you'll see on here, these are most of the symptoms that we're dealing with when it comes to leaky gut. And you'll see that some of these symptoms are actually classic diagnoses. So at this point, you're given medications for some of those diagnoses, and 9 times out of 10 an antibiotic to go with it, just in case. But here's the thing. Medications can lead to leaky gut as well. They are set up to allow for leaky gut so that we can try and kill off what is causing the problem in the first place. But again, we're only symptom treating. So of course, we're taking our medications, we've got all of these symptoms going on, so now we have an ongoing inflammatory response, we're further damaging the cells, and now we've got this constant chronic autoimmune attack, and this leads to malabsorption. When we are in a malabsorptive state, eventually our vitamins and minerals are no longer going to be able to be absorbed. Nothing's going to be absorbed at this point. And so we set ourselves up for vitamin and mineral deficiencies. The problem with that is we need vitamins and minerals and essential fatty acids and even probiotics to run our body properly. They are crucial for hormones, for our adrenals, for our thyroid, for our kidneys. And so if we don't change anything, we end up with more environmental toxins coming in. And we don't change our environment. We don't change our internal environment. We don't change our external environment. And this is when you may finally get that diagnosis that you've been looking for. Because for whatever reason, we can't believe that we can have all of these symptoms unless there's a diagnosis. So this is when it leads to more serious types of conditions. And you may be happy because finally the diagnosis says, okay, look, I am not crazy, I've been diagnosed, I definitely have something. However, everything that I've just explained to you can take up to 20 years because we don't wake up with an illness or a disease. We have symptoms, sometimes for years, before we actually get to that diagnosis. So it starts with the lack of hydrochloric acid, and it leads to leaky gut permeability. And most diseases are a result of inadequate digestion and detoxification. So what happens is we end up with this vicious cycle. We have intestinal inflammation of the intestinal lining. We start to have those malabsorption issues and lack of nutrients. This causes an immune response. Then we have the GI symptoms and the food allergies and the intolerances, which then leads to some form of an autoimmune disease. That we continue the cycle. We still have the inflammation, we still have the malabsorption issues, we still have the immune response, and so it just gets worse and worse and worse. But we still haven't changed anything. All we do is continue to take medications. So what we need to do is tune in, because 70 to 80% of our immune system and half of our nerve cells and neurotransmitters are found in the gut. Everything comes back to our digestive system. This is where we have to start. It is number one. So some of you are probably thinking, okay, look, Karen, I eat right. Why do I still have these uncomfortable symptoms? And this is where Renee and Susie, I know they know this, are going to say, look, you've tried my vitamins and minerals and they're not working. Let's talk about your lifestyle. Let's look at your nutrient deficiencies. What are you deficient in? Let's look at your stomach acid. If you don't have proper hydrochloric acid, you're not going to break down these vitamins and minerals. Then we want to look at your intestinal microflora or your intestinal microbiota. Is your bacteria altered? Have you taken antibiotics once in your life? How well is your liver and gallbladder working? Are you able to detoxify properly? These are the questions that you have to be able to answer in order to get rid of those uncomfortable symptoms. And I know Susie and Renee knows this. So what can you do? Well, I don't want to leave anybody hanging because now that I've scared the pants off of you, and I hope some of you have had some light bulbs go off, the first thing you want to do is get together with Renee or Susie because they can definitely help you out. But these are things that I know they're talking about, and I'm hoping that sometimes if you just hear it from somebody else, it's kind of like my husband. I didn't want him using the Bluetooth, and I was, just on him all the time about the Bluetooth. Please don't use the Bluetooth. Wouldn't listen to me because, of course, who am I, right? But then he heard some expert on CNN talking about it, and guess what? Now he doesn't use the Bluetooth. So yay, I don't care where it comes from. So if Renee and Susie have probably covered this with you, but I am going to affirm what they're saying. We have to get rid of the processed, highly processed refined foods. They are nutrient devoid. They do not have what you need to run your body properly. They will have some vitamins fortified into them, but they are of the synthetic version, and we are learning that those synthetic versions don't work well with our body. We have to look at genetically modified types of food. GMOs are causing leaky gut as well. Bt toxins in particular, they are a toxin for bugs not to eat the plant, and they are specifically made to cause leaky gut in the bug. We eat this and it's causing leaky gut in us. Plus, there is also research out there that is showing that genetically modified organisms have the ability to change the DNA of our own microflora. That is not good news. We have to remove food irritants. Look at the foods that you're eating. Pay attention to the symptoms. Dairy, unless it's raw, you've got to get rid of it, especially if you're dealing with leaky gut. Eventually, if you clean up that leaky gut, you can bring some dairy back in, but we definitely want it to be raw. Sugar is one of the worst things that we can put in our body. It literally just feeds that, feeds the fungus, feeds the bacteria that we don't want a lot of. Medications and chemotherapy are set up to cause intestinal permeability. So you have to take a look at the medications that you're on. If you've had chemotherapy and you really want to change your terrain, start working on that leaky gut. Let's talk about stress. The gut is especially vulnerable to the presence of chronic and even acute stress. Research indicates that stress may lead to changes in gastric secretion, so we can cause intestinal permeability with stress. It affects gut motility, mucosal permeability, and barrier function, as well as visceral sensitivity and mucosal blood flow. And one study showed that gut microbiota may respond to the stress we're dealing with. So we are literally wired to communicate within the body. So if we're under a lot of stress and we have these physiological changes taking place, it actually alerts our microbiota to come in and help us out. So we have to look at how we're reacting and dealing with stress, as well as the integrity of our gut microbes. So we need to ensure that our gut microbiota is in good numbers to work with us. So one way that we can do this is to combat stress on a physical level by taking probiotics so that you can keep the good bacteria working for you and help in your response to stress, as well as your immune response to stress. So probiotics increase the right friendly bacteria to boost your immune system. It allows for vitamin reactions to aid in detoxification. B vitamins, vitamin K2 as well, are developed by probiotics. And probiotics have been shown to decrease inflammation. That is huge. We can also look at digestive enzymes, and digestive enzymes break proteins into amino acids, fats into fatty acids, and carbohydrates into simple sugars. Now, we eat protein, we eat fats, and we eat carbohydrates. So we want to make sure that we have digestive enzymes to break this food down. Now, digestive enzymes and stomach acid decline with age. So if you're over the age of 40, I hate to tell you this, but your warranty is up. And most of us by this age have insufficient levels of digestive enzymes as well as hydrochloric acid. Now let me give you a for instance. Individuals who do not secrete enough proteases suffer from multiple food allergies and cause problems such as leaky gut, colitis, and autoimmune disease. So people with digestive problems cannot break down disaccharides very well. And disaccharides are broken down sugar molecules such as those found in milk sugar. So or just found in milk. So if the disaccharides are not digested, they make their way to the colon and they become putrefied by the microbiota or the microorganisms that live there. And this is going to result in intestinal gas, bloating and constipation, diarrhea, or a combination of constipation and diarrhea. So just an FYI, about 85 to 90% of the population have digestive problems. So if you're just listening to that and saying, that's not me, I would implore you to listen because over 85 to 90% of the population have some form of a digestive problem. So undigested fiber that resists digestive enzymes, so we're talking about the cellulose parts, you know, like your vegetables that just can't be broken down, or your pea or your beans, that kind of thing. They make their way to the colon, and the good bacteria that we already have inside of us takes it and ferments it and then feeds off of it. This is what we call prebiotic. So if we do not feed our good bacteria, this can also cause inflammation in our body, and research indicates that when microbes are starved of fiber, they can start to feed on the protective mucus lining of the digestive tract. That is huge because that can trigger inflammation and can also promote leaky gut. So microbes can extract the fibers, extra energy, nutrients, and vitamins, and other compounds, and they also create short-chain fatty acids. And these short-chain fatty acids are crucial to keeping the intestinal mucosa nice and healthy. And this is of particular interest because they have linked short-chain fatty acids to improved immune function. They have the ability to decrease inflammation, and they can also protect against obesity. And of course, fiber binds and removes excess bile and reduces constipation as well as diarrhea. So we also want to work on liver support. Now, we need to support our liver because our liver is doing all of that detoxification. We want to make sure that the toxins that we're bringing in are being broken down and excreted from the body. We want to make sure that the liver can take excess cholesterol and break that cholesterol down and put it into the gallbladder so that it can be eliminated from the body. And we want to make sure that our gallbladder and liver are working healthy. So we need to put a liver support in place. So when I'm thinking of a liver support, I want to make sure that it has the following ingredients in it. So milk thistle, or in particular an extract from milk thistle, which is a flavonoid called Silybum marianum, and it's been used for over 2,000 years as an herbal remedy for a variety of ailments, but particularly well shown to help with liver and kidney and gallbladder support. And silymarin protects the liver from toxins, including certain drugs such as acetaminophen. So if you are taking a lot of Tylenol, it's really important to be having some form of a milk thistle extract in place because Tylenol, especially in high dosages, can cause liver damage. And in fact, hospitals use milk thistle, or silymarin in particular, to reverse that damage. And they do that intravenously, of course. So silymarin has an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, and it may actually help the liver repair itself by growing new cells. Something else that I'm looking for in liver support is N-acetyl-L-cysteine, or NAC for short. Cysteine is an amino acid which is a building block of proteins that are used throughout the body. But when taken as a supplement, we usually take it in the form of N-acetyl-L-cysteine. So the body makes this into cysteine and then into glutathione. And glutathione is the most powerful antioxidant used by just about every cell in our body. And it also replenishes levels of the intracellular glutathione. And glutathione is usually deficient with advanced age, so there's that other part of the warranty. And so over the age of 40, we may not be making enough glutathione, so N-acetyl-L-cysteine can come in and really help boost that up. And anybody who's dealing with chronic illness as well may be deficient in that glutathione. The last one that I want to make sure is in my liver support is a broccoli concentrate or something from the Brassica family. In this case, it's Brassica oleracea. It's basically Brassica family is cancer fighting. They have cancer fighting components that offer powerful protection against carcinogens and support the body's natural detoxification process, helping to rid the body of cancer causing agents in our food, in our water, and in our environment. So these are the ingredients that I'm looking for to help support my liver and gallbladder. And I know Renee and Susie also talk a lot about liver support. So let's just sum it up. In order to have that healthy gut feeling, it really does start with a healthy gut. So how do we get that healthy gut? Let's make sure that we've got probiotics in place. Let's make sure we're taking a fiber so that we're feeding that probiotic as well. Enzymes to help break down our foods so that we can really utilize the nutrients in that food. Let's make sure we have a liver support. Let's get the sugar and the junk foods out of our body. Our body doesn't like it. It can't use it. It's absolutely useless glue that we are putting in our body. Let's look at quality foods. Let's look at whole foods, foods that are coming from the ground or are somehow attached to the ground. Let's make sure we're drinking tons of water and we're dealing with our stress. This is what's going to keep our gut healthy and allow us for that healthy gut feeling. And Renee and Susie, I will now turn it over to you. Oh, you are there.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
That was awesome. We have a couple of questions that we want to ask. The first one I'm going to ask you, the liver support. When you were talking about the milk thistle, you kind of cut out on the milk thistle. Could you go back and just cover that milk thistle ingredient?
Was it the milk thistle or the N-acetyl-L-cysteine?
It was the milk, right in the beginning when you started talking about milk thistle. It cut out.
Of course, of course. Okay, so can you see me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. All right. So basically, milk thistle, or the flavonoid that we're looking for, is actually Silybum marianum. And it's been used for over 2,000 years as an herbal remedy for a variety of ailments. But it's particularly used for liver, kidney, and gallbladder problems, so it's really good for supporting. It also protects the liver from toxins. One of the things that the hospitals use it for is for protection against overdoses of acetaminophen or Tylenol. Because in high dosages, Tylenol can cause liver problems. And so they will intravenously use Silymarin to detoxify the Tylenol. And Silymarin also has antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, and it has the ability to help the liver repair itself by growing new cells.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So we have a question here from Pamela that's in the class. She has no appendix or no gallbladder. What should she be doing for that?
Just lie down and never wake up. No, I'm just kidding.
You should see her face.
I forgot to warn you, I have a British background. My wit can sometimes get the best of me. Okay, so there's a couple of things. Let's work with the appendix first. So once upon a time, we believed that the appendix was just a leftover from prehistoric times. But what we are starting to find out now is that it's actually a part of the lymphatic system, and it has like a little trap door, and so what it does is it holds on to probiotics or your microflora, and if you come into contact with an illness or a foodborne allergy or anything like that, once the diarrhea has passed, it will actually repopulate the cecum, the colon part, with microbiota. So if you're missing that part, it's really important that you be on a probiotic and start eating fermented foods, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to really build up that microbiota. So when we talk about the gallbladder is about emulsifying fats, and all that means is we're taking large fat molecules and we're making them really, really tiny so that they can make it through the microvilli. So if you don't have a gallbladder, you are still squirting out bile, but we don't have any control of that bile. We can't concentrate the bile. We can't make sure that you're detoxifying properly. And there's some research that's indicating that if we constantly have that leaking out, it can actually cause intestinal inflammation as well, because bile has acids in it. So it's really important that you take a pancreatic type of enzyme, as well as a digestive enzyme that has hydrochloric acid in it, because we need the acid in the stomach to allow for the duodenum to know that there's incoming food. So we may not have that trigger for the gallbladder, and we may not have that trigger for the pancreas. So it's really important to be on the probiotic, as well as some form of a pancreatic enzyme and some form of hydrochloric acid supplementation that has pepsin in it as well.
Great, thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm.
Pamela says thank you. All right.
Oh, you're very welcome.
The next question we have is from Gary. He says, can the micro be healed?
Say the question one more time.
Can the micro be healed?
Can the microbes heal?
Gary, do you want to let the microvilli?
Can the microvilli heal? Oh, yes. Absolutely, it can. I've actually proven that with myself. I have had part of my small intestine taken out, and I still absorb nutrients. And the way that I would test it, my poor doctor, I loved him to death. He always knew when I was experimenting because I'd get a phone call. And so what I did is I would do a baseline of all of the nutrients that I could test, and then I would just start taking a whole bunch of them, and then I would test in a month, and they would skyrocket. They would be through the roof, and of course my doctor would call and say, "Okay, Karen, what are you doing?" So if we work on our gut, if we work on that intestinal, getting the tight junctions back, yes, the microvilli can come back. The liver is the fastest regenerating organ in our body. Our intestinal tract is second. It literally starts regenerating in as little as 24 hours. But you have to remove what's causing the problem. You can't heal something if you're going to continuously take it in.
Okay, and then the second question from Gary is, if you have dark bags under the eyes, what's the best thing to do for those?
Okay, so dark circles and bags under the eyes are a couple of things. If they're puffy and baggy, there's something going on with the kidneys and the bladder. Now, it could be that you're dehydrated. That could be part of it. And the dark circles under the eye, or the dark part of it, has to do with food sensitivities, food allergies, and probably leaky gut syndrome as well, and some type of either fungus or parasitic or candida, that kind of thing.
Okay. Can you have a question? You have anything, Susie? Okay, so those are all the questions that we have. Thank you so much, Karen. That was awesome. We really appreciate you joining us tonight and giving us all this wonderful information.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. It's too bad I can't see everybody, but okay, that's great. And I'll just sign off. If anybody has any questions, they can go through you and we can go from there.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
All right, and I don't see Susie, but thanks. See you later. Okay. Bye.
What we're going to do here is Karen has mentioned some of the Usana products, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit, and I have them on display at the table. Okay, all right. So let me back up here. The first one we're going to talk about is, of course, Karen mentioned too, the importance of a good vitamin and mineral product, and that would be our essentials, that Usana's core product. The mega antioxidant supplies precisely balanced levels of vitamins and antioxidants to stop cell function. The chelated minerals are a formulated balance of essential minerals and ultra trace minerals to get the full benefit of both products that should be taken together, as we discussed before. And then over to the second picture, I'm going to talk about the probiotics. They're up there first. That's the little box right there. The probiotics help the body break down and absorb the vitamins and minerals from our food and nutritional supplements. Many probiotics on the market today cannot survive stomach enzymes and don't even get to the intestinal tract. Our probiotics are verified by protein colony-forming units with 2 strains well documented to survive transit. That's the BB12 and the LGG. I have the explanation of those as Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus rhamnosus. That just blows right up the tongue. Those are the 2. You notice, I know from the market that they'll have 6 or 7 that they list, but they won't have those 2. And so people will say, well, they have more, so it must be better. No, more is not better. That's to be these 2. And then your digestive enzymes, I have up next here, supply enzymes to help you digest your meals more efficiently and alleviate the sense of fullness after a large meal or bloating associated with digestion. Also contains artichoke extract to help the stomach upset. And also in that picture is the fiber wheat plus. This contains 2 sources of fiber. One is a bulking agent to clean the intestinal tract. The second, fiber assists the digestive tract's ability to absorb nutrients and break down food. Great for weight loss. We add this every morning to our Usana Leafy Meal Shake. And the last product there at the bottom of the page is our Hepateel. Karen spent a lot of time talking about liver support and how many different medications and products make it essential to be on the Hepateel, the liver support product. But our Hepateel offers liver support, which plays a vital role in the body's natural detoxification process. Our liver has the hard job of filtering all the toxins within our body. Remember the toxins from earlier. This is a huge job to put on one organ. Hepateel helps the liver metabolize fats and cholesterol moving out of the body. This is essential if you are a smoker, consume alcohol, or take pharmaceutical drugs, or over-the-counter drugs for sparingly. If you take a statin drug for cholesterol, this is so very important. That is why you have your blood tested regularly to check for liver damage with on a statin drug. So that's it for this evening. Thank you so very much, everyone, for coming. If you have any questions at all, okay.
Okay. So if anyone has any questions or needs any more information, please let us know. Contact us for the evening. So thank you very much.
We're excited.